for dehydrating foods at home, what you can do is build a simple dehydrator like this one I've got here. See, just a simple wooden frame, a box, and the top box has a screen on one side, just on the top side. And the bottom has a screen here, and also underneath, so that whatever food you put on this screen right here, bugs can't get to it from the bottom or the top. When you put it together, it looks like that. Almost any food can be dehydrated, but here today I'm going to use these little tomatoes. I'm just going to slice them up nice and thin. I'm going to put them in my dehydrator, and I'll demonstrate how to sun-dry tomatoes in just a simple dehydrator like this is right here. And you just slice them thin. These are going to be good. And then once you got your slices, you lay them out on the screen like this. And you spread them out, make sure there's plenty of space in between each one. Right, these are going to be good. And also, you can dehydrate meat just with the sun, just like that. As long as you keep the insects off of it and let it dry out completely, it'll be just fine to take a raw piece of meat like this and just let it dry out in the sun. A lot better than smoking it because it doesn't have the heavy smoke flavor. And I usually just dehydrate it with no salt, no pepper, nothing like that on it, because it enables me to use it in any normal cooking dish for meals that I'd like to have. And if you spice it up with certain kinds of spices, you can't use it with every meal, so it kind of makes it difficult to use that way. But I just slice it up into thin strips. I try to cut across the grain so that when the meat dries out, it just falls apart and it's not hard to chew. It separates really easy. It makes it a lot better to use. And you just slice it up into thin strips. And then you take these and lay those out on the screen. Okay, now that I got my tomatoes and my meat all laid out on my screen, I can put the lid on. Now I've got these wire ties right here on the ends to hold it down fast. And at night, if I don't take this inside with me, I'll cover it up with a tarp to keep moisture from settling down inside there, and that helps keep it dry at night. And you can just leave it right outside, but you have to cover it up, or you can just take it inside. And it takes about 3 or 4 days for the sun to dry those out enough to pack up and carry with you. See, the good thing about the screen is, I don't know if you can see that fly trying to land in there. He smells the food, but he can't get to it. He can't get to it from the top, You can't get to it from the bottom. So that's why the double screen, and it keeps the insects off of everything. You can even pack something like this with you in your backpack. Take a couple pieces of screen with you. It doesn't weigh much. If you make a small one, you could almost carry something like this with you to use out in the wilderness. And for emergency purposes, what you can do is take a branch like this in your shirt, and you spread your shirt out nice and flat. Just open it up and take the branch and you fold it like that, and you slide it up inside of the shirt. See? And then let it go. And it makes a nice frame. And what you can do is open the shirt up like that and put your food inside, and it makes a barrier to keep the insects from getting at it. This is a slightly faster method of getting the same job done. You need a good sized can that has a lid and some kind of a suitable flower pot or something to put hot coals in, and you need a smaller bucket to cover that up with, and you put your food on that plate right there. And I'm about to show you how to set this up and use it. First thing I got to do is build a fire. Once I get some coals, I'll be ready. And the food that I intend to dehydrate, I'm going to put in this tray right here. Make sure there's plenty of space so that it's not touching anywhere. Okay, that's ready. Okay, my coals are ready. So what I do is I take a flower pot, scrape as much of the hot coals in there as I can, and that goes inside the bucket. See? You take this bucket, put that on top, and then you set the mushrooms in there, see? And the lid goes on the can. And you let that set until the coals have gone absolutely cold, and you may have to repeat the process more than once. But this will speed up the dehydration process dramatically, and you can dry a mushroom like that out in about 5 or 6 hours. If you don't have a bucket, what you can do is make a simple A-frame, and you build a fire on top of a rock, and you get the rock really hot, and when the coals go out, you sweep it clean, and you build a small A-frame over top of it, and you cover it with as much green brush as you can. And then what I do is I make a little basket to put my food on, like these poke salad greens right here that I want to dry out. And I'll set them on top of the rock like that and finish closing this in with more brush, and I'll let the heat from the rock dehydrate the food. See, you just seal it up all the way around. A little teepee there with a hot rock in it, and that'll dry your food out really quick. Alright, here's my tomatoes. The next morning, see, they're still not quite dry enough. Look at that one there. Look at that one. Alright. And the meat, it's just about dried out too. Almost completely reduced. This will be done today. You see, this is why I use the basket when I'm dehydrating with my hot rock because sometimes they can burn the leaves. See? And this protected my food from getting too hot. And these are reusable. All you do is take the stone out, build a fire on top of it, get it hot again, stick it back inside there and use it over. Alright, I'm going to slice up this potato real thin. I'm going to make some potato starch out of it. After crushing the potato, the water turns a milky white color, as you can see here. And the stuff that's left over, these potato parts, you wring the water out of them really good, and then you lay those out. You lay those out to be sun dried, and that way none of the food gets wasted. But this, I'm going to turn this potato starch into flour. And to do that, I'm going to have to let it settle for a while. Probably about a half an hour or so. So we'll come back to this in a few minutes. Because I'm going to be using this to make pemmican with, I have to transform this liquid into a dry powder. And I'm going to show you how to do that here today. I can give these nuts a light crush. I don't want to reduce them too much. Yeah, that'll be just fine right there. See, this is what I'm after right here. That white starch that settles to the bottom. Oh, yeah. It's nice and thick. Alright, and just continue letting that dehydrate, letting the water dry out, and that's pretty much all there is to it. And you can speed this process up by using a hot rock. Just burn a fire on top of the rock, sweep off the coals, and set this pan on top of it, and the rock should be warm enough to dehydrate the moisture out of it without getting it hot enough to cook. And that's the main thing, you don't want to cook it, you just want to dehydrate it. Okay, as you can see, my potato starch is all nice and dry, and it's turned to a powder. Okay, it just powders right off. I'm going to scrape that up out of there, and I'll be ready to start making my pemmican. Alright, you can see that's all scraped over into the corner there and ready to use. So we can open the lid on my dehydrator. You can see the tomatoes. Oh yeah, they're done. And this meat is completely dry too. So to make pemmican, what I have to do is I have to grind the meat up. Well, grind all the ingredients together. And if you don't have a mortar and pestle or a seed grinder or something like that, you can just use a piece of wood like this and a mandrel to grind it up with, which is just another piece of wood. You start that process by pounding the meat with a mandrel. See? You just pound it nice and flat until it falls apart. See how it's just coming right apart? Oh yeah, that's going to be good. And repeat that process until all your meat is done. Okay, my meat is thoroughly shredded, and I took my tomatoes and I kind of crushed them up a little bit, I'm going to put them together and mix it up real good. And pemmican is kind of like a sausage. And you grind your meat, you grind all the ingredients together, and you wrap it up nice and tight, and you press it under stones for several weeks until it reduces in volume and comes together into a solid piece. It's kind of like sausage. So if you're not pressing your pemmican under stones and letting it go solid like that, all you really have is just jerky, and it's not genuine pemmican. Because when it compacts and presses together like that, it reduces volume, and that reduced volume food was the secret to the Indian wonder food that everyone raves about. And that's all they really did, is they dehydrated everything, and they ground it all up together, and they pressed it really tight under stones until it reduced in volume. And that process would take maybe 3 to 6 weeks. Okay, next thing I do is I work the potato starch into it, or the cattail flour, or bulrush root flour, or whatever, kunti plant, the Indian bread root, whatever you might be using, arrowroot. There's a lot of different things you can use. But here today I use potato flour. You just work that all together until it's thoroughly combined. I like to add a few nuts to it when I've got them. You can add any kind of nut you want. And the best recipe for pemmican is whatever you have on hand. So that's what I use. Okay, finally I'm going to throw a small pinch of crushed bay leaf in there, and now I'm just going to continue grinding this up until all the nuts are completely pulverized, and that's how I'll know it's combined well enough, smashed well enough. The more you work it, the better it is. The better the final product is. A little bit of patience now pays off later. Then I take a muscadine grape leaf and I portion these out just for palm-sized little meals. And I wrap them up in the grape leaves. And once you've wrapped them up in your grape leaves, you put them into a suitable container like this flower pot I'm using right here. And you take your stones and you pack the stones in on top of them. And these stones are good and hot from sitting out in the sun. So they'll help warm that up and they'll really kick the process off. But you put stones on top of it and you press it like that, and you leave it for several weeks, and it protects your food from the bugs, and it preserves the pemmican in a way that other preservation processes can't. And it makes the best possible food because it condenses it as much as it possibly can be, so it has very little volume for a huge amount of food value. So this is the genuine method for pemmican. If I had a large volume of food to prepare in this way, and I had larger buckets with dozens of grape leaves in there, what I'd have to do is rotate. I'd have to take the stones out. You'd have to unpack the stones and rotate the food inside, and then repack the stones on it to make sure that it all dries out evenly. And now we'll go take this inside and let it set in a dark, cool place, and just let it rest for a couple weeks, and it'll be good to eat. Okay, now that my potatoes are completely dried out, they're nice and crunchy, the tomatoes are all dried out, I need to return these to a state where I can eat them. I'm going to show you how to do that. But first I got to build a fire. Okay, bring some water to a boil. Yeah, that was hot. And once that comes to a boil, I'll show you how to reconstitute dehydrated foods so that you can use them to cook with. And after readjusting it so that it sets closer to the fire, I can just let it boil, and when it gets hot enough, I'll be ready. And while I'm waiting for the water to boil, I'm going to put my dried potatoes and my handful of tomatoes in this little stew pot right here. And I got a lid for it. So when that's ready, I can reconstitute my food. Okay, you bring the water to a rolling boil and make sure it's sterilized and purified, and then it's ready to use. Just very carefully pour the boiling hot water over top of the food, just enough to cover it. See? And you put the lid on, and you just let it rest there for about 20 minutes and let it rehydrate. And after it cools off, after about 20 minutes, it's ready to use. I can't forget those poke salad leaves that I had. I'll put those in there, kind of crumble them up. Alright, almost ready. Okay, after draining the water out, you can see the potatoes are all nicely rehydrated. They're all soft again, just like they were before I dried them out. And so are the tomatoes. They're nice and soft again, ready to eat. I can go ahead and eat this just like this, or I can continue cooking it into a soup or just whatever I want. I can saute this and do anything I want with it. And that's how to rehydrate your dehydrated foods. Alright, I'm going to chop up some of this summer sausage right here. Yeah, boy, look at that. I'm going to toss some of that in there and saute it on my wood fire. I'm going to have a good camp meal tonight. Just going to roughly chop that up. I'm going to saute it up. Oh, that's going to be good. You know, these summer sausages like this make a perfect survival food to carry with you, because it's a preserved meat. Even after you've opened the package, it stays good for several days, if not weeks. Especially if the temperatures are cooler outside. It just makes perfect sense to carry something like this in your backpack. Alright, so we'll toss that in there. We'll put that on the fire and saute it up. And a good way to make a stovetop is just to use a couple pieces of wood that have some height to them, and build your fire in between them. And that way you can rest your pan right on top, and it kind of holds it up off the coals a little bit. And it's a stable way to cook. Alright, Alright, and here it's starting to sizzle up. Got me thinking about that rooster back there. And after a few minutes of sauteing this in the pan, it'll be ready to eat. And summer sausages have a lot of oil in them, so if you don't carry oil with you, you can fry the summer sausage and it'll oftentimes put out enough oil to keep everything loose in the pan. See, I'm just cooking on a thick pile of sticks, and the fire's kind of going slow, a little choky. And I just piled my sticks on there and then put my pan on it. I had a good bed of coals under there first, so the fire's just trying to catch back up. By the time the fire gets too hot, my food will be cooked, so I won't really risk burning anything. You see, using the 2 logs like that, I can store around my pan with it. I don't even have to hold on to it. It's stable, it doesn't move around anywhere. Yum. The important thing about this is I've shown you how to make an entire meal out of preserved foods only. Nothing fresh, all preserved foods. And you get a complete meal that's extremely tasty. Let's try a piece of this and see what it tastes like. That's good. Alright, that's ready to eat. A lot of times I use my knife to eat with, but today I'm going to use these chopsticks. See? Boy, that's good. Yeah, pokeweed greens are kind of like spinach. They have a good flavor to them. Now that's a good wilderness meal. Okay, my pemmican's ready. Let's take all the rocks out. See, there's my 2 pieces all nice and dried up in the bottom there. And you don't have to worry about unwrapping these because the grape leaves are edible. And when they dry out like this, they get a nice sweet flavor to them. So it really kind of complements the pemmican. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one of them open and we'll see what's inside. Alright, I'll just cut one of these open. And as you can see, it's all nice and tightly compressed. It's all stuck together. And it looks good. Yeah, that has such a nice flavor to it. Oh, that's really good. I wish I had a great big bucket full of this. And I wonder, was this the Lembas bread that J.R.R. Tolkien mentioned in his famous books? And this species of grass right here is just loaded with seeds that you can collect and grind up into a flour. See, let me just full of them. This is one of the beneficial grains that you can collect and make use of out in the wilderness. Just as useful as wheat. You'll see just a few tops of that species of grass, and I've got a whole handful of seed. If I was trying to put together a wilderness meal to survive on, this would be a good step towards that. And this tree right here is a wild cherry tree, and it produces its fruit late in the season, autumn, on through early winter here in the Florida area. And it has little red cherries all over it. Of course, they haven't started to produce yet. It's still too early in the year. Well, those would be good this fall. If you just walk over here with me, I'll show you these creosote plants. There's this little shrub. Has kind of decorative flowers on it. And the foliage itself is just really sticky. It's got a sticky coating on the outside of it. And it kind of has a smell similar to sassafras. And what you do is you just crush the leaves and rub it on your skin, and it repels insects. And also you can take the dry dead wood from the creosote plant and cook over it, and it gives you food a flavor that's very much like mesquite. This is an extremely useful plant. And all you do is you just crush the leaves up and you rub it all over, and this stuff will repel insects. There's a wild pea. Well, that's going to be good. Look what I found. A little box turtle. I think we'll let this one go. I don't have the heart to try to eat one of these. It's so little. That's beautiful. Alright, there you go.